Good evening, welcome to this video. Today we have the recommended lineup for the US Rank 2 daily tests. Probably going to think of a better title for that, but I'll think of that once my brain's actually awake. So today we're going to be taking a look at a lineup of vehicles which, obviously because the maximum cruise slots for a free-to-play player is 6, this is what I'll be using as a basis. I'm going to make a lineup that people can have 6 cruise slots in. This will feature 4 ground vehicles and 2 air vehicles. And obviously, it will depend on what you need them to actually be and all that jazz. But obviously, for each of these lineup videos, there's going to be a rank 2 version and a rank 3 version and above for these specific nations. What this means is that I will attempt, keyword, because not all nations will have this luxury, I will attempt to feature as many daily tests that you could do with these lineups as best I can. In the case of the USA, it's not until the rank 3 where we can comfortably do the heavy tank task, as the only real heavy tank around this sort of BR would be you're pushing it to the T14 at a bare minimum, and obviously that's a premium. One thing to note before we begin, these will not feature premium vehicles. This is because not every player is going to be going in on the deep end and buying a premium vehicle for War Thunder, so these vehicles, or these vehicle lineups, will be entirely free to play. Without further ado, let's get in and let's discuss the vehicles that I've chosen for my recommendation for the lineup. I would start out with one which is really player preference, the M4A1 Sherman. Now, there is another vehicle that you could slot in this place, and that is the M4A3 105 Sherman. But obviously, I don't think the 105 is as forgiving for a newer player straight off the bat because of its lower turret traverse and its overall more difficult playstyle for a newer player. The Sherman, or the M4A1 Sherman, is just that little bit more forgiving. Obviously, the stock shell is awful, but, well, we know that. But once you get M61, this tank becomes a bit of a beast. 12 degrees of gun depression, good turret armor, solid hull armor, as long as you're not fighting the Germans. And whilst it does have a prominent weak spot in the corner of the armors, or the side panels here, which obviously curve over to the front, that is a prevalent weak spot, but honestly, this tank makes up for it with its sheer versatility. The tank is a classic example of jack of all trades and master of none, and is a perfect vehicle for getting a new player started. And as I said, this will do medium tank tests, this will do winds, this will do... Hey, you can even shoot down planes with it because it's got a 50 cal up top. And just overall, this tank is very good at doing what it can do in the game, really. There's nothing the Sherman can't really do other than the heavy tank task. Next up, we have the M10 GMC, which is mainly, ironically, the vehicle I'm going to be using after I finish recording this to go do my daily. But that's besides the point. So the M10 is a tank that is pretty solid. Like, it's got a 3-inch gun, 50 cal top, so you can even shoot down planes with it and deal with light vehicles. But of course, it doesn't just need to be used for the SPG tasks. It can help towards wins, it can help towards assists, because this gun doesn't always one-shot. But a lot of the time it does, but still. And it's just another vehicle to add to the lineup to really bolster it, and it's a solid vehicle to add in. The armor can be quite trollish, especially with an add-on track armor which I have on it. And it can be a vehicle that can be an absolute nightmare if you get it hull down. Now sure, it does have weak spots, and it's of course vulnerable to planes, did forget to mention that. But this vehicle overall is just a solid all-round vehicle. Obviously, your stock round is awful because it's the M71 shot or M73, I can't remember. But the fact is that this vehicle has a great gun once you get it upgraded, because the M62 shot is not far away in terms of upgrades. And as you'll see here, it's only at rank 2, and with the Sherman, it's also rank 2. But like I said, the armor won't always save you because people can just shoot where the armor is not as thick with the track armor. The turret does have a weak spot here and up here, which is quite small, but still prevalent. And its turret traverse is awful, but it makes up for this because it's got decent mobility, it can get into a good position, and can nail pretty much any tank you're going to come across. And that's really all you can ask for from a tank destroyer. But of course, as I said, it can help towards those tasks and just really, really benefit the lineup overall. Next, we have, well, if I didn't pick this, I'm sure the US mains would riot, and to be honest, I would riot at myself. The M5A1 Stewart. This can do your, well, light tank daily, because obviously you do get light and medium tasks when it comes to that. You can do scouting, you can help out just in general, you can get caps, because this thing's quite fast. It's got a good enough gun to do pretty much most things that you could run into. Obviously, in the 4-3, which is where you'll be up tiering this tank, potentially, it will start to show its age. And you can definitely push this line up to 3-7, because if you wish to do so, you can take along the Chaffee, but obviously you are bumping yourself up to 3-7. But obviously, the problem is with the 3-7 lineup is it doesn't really exist. Like, you do have to up tier the Sherman, the M10 and everything. The M10 can handle it, but the M4A1 already gets penned quite easily. You can obviously upgrade to the M4 Sherman, but obviously that involves you having to go to a folder and increase your grind, and that's what I'm trying to avoid with this sort of thing. But even then, this isn't meant to be a frontline tank anyway. Sure, you can take out a lot of vehicles, but obviously against the Russian stuff, you will be struggling. Against some of the more up-armored German stuff, you will be struggling. But as long as you eventually learn weak spots, the 37 can still find a way through and can still definitely pack a punch. And with this vehicle's much better reverse rate than the other two vehicles we've already featured in this video so far, we definitely do have a vehicle that can escape from a situation and can definitely make the most of it. And as I said, this little fella can get to a cap much faster than an M10 or a Sherman can. And the fact that you'll be fighting Pumas, which, yes, they can pen you, but you can pen them and you have a stabilizer. So you have the combat advantage straight away. That's why I picked this thing. But as I said, if you really want to, you can up tier yourself to around 3-7 and take along the M24 Chaffee if you want something with a bit more firepower. But of course, I'm trying to think of something where we don't have to do that because that would involve more grinding. I want to try and think of a player that's not long into the game and I want to start doing daily tasks. And obviously with the lineups being versatile, that's the intention. Next, we come on to the vehicle that will probably have the least amount of mention, the SPAA. Again, there's going to be SPAA tasks for you to do, and the M16 MGMC is the perfect example for that. Not only is this vehicle great at shooting down planes, it butchers Pumas like a boss, which all I can say is it earns a plus point for that. And the simple fact of the matter is, if a plane is having an argument with you, you have quad 50s. I think you're winning the argument most of the time. Now, obviously, if a pilot is smart enough, they'll just go for your crew cab, which is in the front. They won't necessarily go for the gunner if they don't want to. They will just target here because it's very lightly armoured, and of course, open top where your driver and commander are sat. But as long as you can ambush a plane, like you can set yourself up in a good position and you can just shoot down planes, you can do a lot of work. And like years ago, I even took this thing out for a Talisman series video and it did quite well. Like, it didn't do the best because we couldn't kill everything. But the point is that since that video, I think it's had a pen buff, like not much, but like 4mm. So it can definitely help it out. And the simple fact is you have a vehicle which on paper doesn't seem too useful because obviously most people would think it's just good for taking out aircraft, which of course there are plane tasks which have to be done, like you have to shoot down planes. But the fact is as well, this thing's relatively maneuverable in what it can do. And towards the late game, if you have to, you can even go after other enemy SPAs and start showing them who's boss. And like I said, I've done that before in this thing, it's great. And with its fast turret traverse, can easily react to threats. What more can I say about this thing? Now we move on to the planes. Now, of course, for the planes, you don't specifically need a type of aircraft for a task in Ground RB. This is because a lot of the time, you're mainly going to be using your planes to try and level the playing field. And that's kind of what you can do. Now, the F4U-1A is the easier option to get. However, I'm going to specifically state this because I know someone's going to say it in the comments, because I can read the comments like a book. Is it in the rank 3 anymore? I don't remember where it is. I need to find it. Here it is. So this is the better option. This is the F4U-1D, because it doesn't just get one 1,000 pounder, it gets two. But of course, remember, I'm trying to think of an easier thing for a player to get. At the end of the day, it's less grinding to get this Corsair. If we look where it is, the F4U-1D is stuck in a folder behind the US Marine Corps Corsair, which, side note, Gaijin, you've still not given this thing payloads. They literally modified this thing to take more bombs. But, whatever. So like I said, it's stuck in a folder. You have to go through the US Marine Corps Corsair, which has no CAS, and then you have to get to the F4U-1D. The main reason why I'm choosing the F4U-1A is it's far more convenient, does basically the same job, only loses about 50 horsepower, and of course the extra 1,000 pound bomb, and it still has a 1,000 pound bomb. If you're dropping this thing on pretty much any poor sod, they're having a bad day either way. So thinking about that is just the best thing to consider for a newer player, and that's what these lineups are trying to do. And the fact is, all of these vehicles you can get to very easily. You don't require much grinding, that's why I've picked them. And like I said, the plane tasks, as I said, you don't really need a plane, so to speak, but having a plane in your lineup is always nice. And the F4U-1A is perfect for this. It does well in terms of its performance. It's a very fast aircraft on the deck. It can outrun a lot of the cast that you're going to run into, and then you can potentially turn the tide. Whilst its climb rate is subpar, and its turn rate is not the best at low speeds, which is where most dogfights will take place, the fact is that this plane has 650 caliber guns, which can butcher enemy tanks from above. You have the 1,000 pound bomb, and heck, if you're not even at the 1,000 pound bomb loadout, which is at rank 4, you can still use a 500 pounder. So yeah, what more can I really say about this thing? It's versatile, it's efficient at what it does, and most importantly, it does a lot of work. What more can I say? And of course, it's not fair of me to just include one plane, I always try to include two. And I picked this one because it's the more versatile option of the early US aircraft. This is the A-36 Apache. Now, of course, the bombs do not come stock, or I think they only get 100 pounders stock, which, well, you can see how small these little things are. If you've been dropping them in F3Fs, you should have some experience, but still. That's what I recommend for low tier cast, by the way, just use the F3F. But anyway, the fact is that even though you only get 100 pounders stock, you can easily get the gun. You don't have to get the gun pod, just to point out. If you notice here, there's no arrow pointing down from the gun pod. You do not need this. You're probably not going to use this in ground RB. You can just go straight away and get the 250 pound bombs pretty much right off the bat, which they're bigger, they pack more of a punch, and they're easier to aim. And then eventually, you'll get yourself the 500 pounders. And like I said, you don't need planes specifically for specific tasks, but just having a plane can make all the difference between a win and a loss, and that's why I've picked the two planes that I have. And like I said, this is definitely something that you need to consider when it comes to forming a lineup. But anyway, that's it for today. I really hope this opens up your eyes in terms of like what lineups can be done, and obviously this is more leaning towards a newer player. Obviously, if you're an experienced player, you might want to change some things around, which of course you can. That's perfectly acceptable. But this is more for the newer player. This is something that I've been trying to do for the last few months now, trying to like help out newer players and things like that. And like I said, that's just my intention, and I want to obviously try and make things better for newer players. And I've been doing that for a while now. I've been making guides, tier lists, things like that, and that's what I'm going to keep doing. But obviously, before we move on to Germany, there will be a rank 3 one coming up. And of course, that will try to be as easily accessible as possible, same as this. But of course, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think this is a good idea for a little mini-series? Should I continue it? And most importantly, is there anything that you would change in this lineup to make it a bit more your style, if that's the way I would put it? But anyway, I'm going to leave you all to it for today. Hope you enjoyed seeing this little lineup of rank 2 vehicles, and I'll see you all on the next one.